All right. Well, Kevin Barker, you'll be happy to know that your Toronto Blue Jays playoff chances went up after yesterday's non-doubleheader two-game sweep of the Boston Red Sox. They're now at 0.05% from 0.0.
You're saying there's a chance.
Well, there's more of a chance than there was yesterday when we had a caller ask us on Blue Jays Talk.
And you were rude.
I was not rude.
You were.
What we thought the Blue Jays playoff chances were, or was there any way they could get back into it? And I just went to Fangraphs playoffs odds, and I said, according to Fangraphs, who figure these things out, and I trust them because I'm sure as hell not going to figure it out. But they gave the Jays a 0.01% chance, and I think it was Kevin Barker who said that was a little optimistic. So anyhow, there you go.
Yeah, it's a stretch.
Game three of this 5-game, 5-game series that started on June 26th or whenever it started. It continued this week. They'll go tonight from Fenway Park. The Jays, as we mentioned, coming off 4-1 and 7-3 wins yesterday over the Red Sox. We talked a little bit about this on Blue Jays Talk following the game, and we'll have Blue Jays Talk again tonight following the game. The Red Sox defensively they stink. They were not very good last night. I think Buck Martinez will join us later on in the show. I think at one point they had something like 49 unearned runs at home, some number like that. They were really. I think Alex Cora made a comment after the first game yesterday that he didn't say that he thought the pressure was getting to some of his young players, but he kind of sort of indicated that they were starting to feel a little bit of the weight right now. They did not look they did not look good. I didn't think in either of those games, and certainly that second game defensively, they were just not good at all.
Yeah, I can just remember whenever I played, it was the marathon. That's the part where you're facing players that are just as good or better than you are, and you're trying to compete at the highest level on an everyday basis. And that's not the easiest thing to do, and you forget fundamentals because of the marathon. And that, I think, is sort of what you're going through there. I think Alex will figure that out. If you notice their team's got a bunch of athletes running all over the place. That you can't teach. The catching the ball and the little throw to the pitcher and the pitcher looking the ball in the glove, you can teach a guy how to do that. Like, slow it down, don't overthink it, do little baby steps when you run to the bag, catch the ball first, then tag the bag like it's baseball 101. It's little things like that. Cora knows his team better than I do. I just know what I went through. What I went through was it's hard at that level to compete at the highest level every single day. More of a mental grind than it is a physical grind. And I think that's what you're seeing. So there's a reason why they're getting close to not being in it anymore. It's because of that reason, right? You give good teams 27 outs. You give more than that, a lot of the times you're going to get beat.
And let's be clear, I think at the start of the year, a lot of us didn't have the Red Sox ahead of the Blue Jays in the AL East. We thought it might be a difficult year. It might be a difficult year for the Red Sox. I mean, their pitching is, I don't think their pitching.
Good enough. Starting pitching is good enough.
I don't think it's good enough to go on a postseason run or dominate in the AL East. But they are young. They've got some depth in the minor league system, and they're a team. We talked to Ian Brown about this yesterday. They are a team with a couple of adds in the offseason that could very much be a growing concern. In the AL East. The Jays have now gone 15 games with a home run. That's the third longest streak in club history. You've made the point often. It is remarkable when a team is hitting home runs how much better everything looks. And that really is the case here, isn't it?
Yeah, well, since the break, they're seventh in hits, they're eighth in runs with 170, they're eighth in home runs with a slug. Like, that's the thing, right? They're in the 36 games since the break, they're averaging 4.7 runs per game. You do that with the starting pitching that you have, you can close your eyes and see how that would work out, right?
Yeah.
That I think is sort of what they're trying to get to. It's just, how much do you read into who's hitting the homers? That I think is the thing, right? It's
that's the old question, though, right? And so what do you do? How much do you read? How much do you believe what you're going to see in September? Yeah, that's the old question.
Well, we're going to find out, right? They're facing better teams. They're facing some playoff teams here, teams that are in the hunt. The reason why they're in the hunt is because they got good pitching. Most of the time, good pitching keeps it in the yard. You got to have better at bats, right? The quality of your takes have to be better. I think that's one of the things that if I were John Snyder and the plethora of hitting coaches, that's probably what I would look for is the quality of the takes, right? It's how do you get to your A swing consistently? It's not always the result. It's that part of it, right? Is you consistently off a pitcher's pitch to get yours, and how many times would you see your A swing? So, I don't know. It's hard to read into that. They've been facing some really bad teams lately. So, again, I'm not going to change anything that I've seen that would change my mind on what they need in the offseason. 2 thumpers and a closer. You get that, and then you can do with whoever you want to do with sort of what you're picking from here. Just the evaluations, I think, have to be better and quicker with the organization, right? That's where they're at as an organization. They're in that hard-to-hear stage. The hard-to-hear stage is the model that they've been trying to use the last couple of years just hasn't worked. Like, it's just not. And now you can sort of see, even with this, right, the bunch of youth that they have on their team, how it looks every day. And when you add the element of the 3-run homer like it was yesterday from Springer, it's like that thing, right? You get good starting pitching, somebody runs into one, you play really good defense like they always do, you start seeing the base running sort of getting better, going up a tick because they're hitting more homers. I mean, it's just, again, it's almost too easy to sit back and go, this is what they need. This is how you're going to fill in the blanks. And then it would be okay to have a Loperfido and a Horowitz and a Clement and, you don't want to get crazy with it, but you could see how you could fill in the blanks with the guys that they have here the last 2 months if they went out and added 2 guys who know how to hit the bunch of 3-run homers. That's where I'm at with that.
The Jays with a win tonight can go pull themselves to within 2 games of 500. They're 65 and 68 right now. The last time they were that close was June 17th. They were 35 and 36.
Well, for somebody that said that they don't care if they finish over 500, you have mentioned that quite a bit the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I'll ask you this, 29 games to go 82 and 80. They got to go 17 and 12. Think they can do it? They got 14 games at home, 15 games on the road.
They've got Atlanta.
They got the Red Sox for 6. They got the Twins for 3. They got the Phillies for 2. They got the Braves for 3. They got the Mets for 3. They got the Cardinals for 3. They got Texas for 3. They got the Rays for 3. They end the season with the Marlins.
It's going to be hard.
For 3. 17 and 12, 82 and 80. You care? John Snyder care?
No, but I think what 500 does do, though, is, I don't think the players are going to be popping champagne when and if they get the 500, but it signifies progress for a team. Like, the stuff that ultimately will be judged as progress. And we don't know how the organization's looking at what they're seeing right now. We have no clue. We have no clue. I'm willing to bet that they probably like a lot of stuff we don't like, and they don't like a lot of stuff we do like, because that seems to be.
They don't like homers?
Well,
I
mean,
they haven't surrounded their team the last couple of years with it.
The point is, I think the record does. The record is what we use to look for progress in a team.
This is what I'll say.
I'll put it this way: it's better to finish. You know what?
How about this?
Better to finish a couple of games over 500 than 9 games under 500.
Do you think this would tell them without a doubt, if they finish 2 games above 500, that's the blueprint on how you do it?
No.
Just by saying the 7th in hits, 8th in runs, 8th in homers, 8th in slug, you can do it with that.
Well, that's in the majors or in the American League?
That's in the majors. Since the break.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't. I think they've seen enough right now, and given what we've heard from Mark and Ross, I think they realize they need to get more offense in here. Like, I don't think they're going to try to run it back with this year's version of Justin Turner and this year's version of Kevin Kiermaier. I think they'll go out and try to make a move. I also think that I also think that they realize that, the Vladdy Bo window's closing, and
I hope they realize too those two can't do it by themselves.
Yeah,
that's what I hope.
But you've got to get the next window ready. You have to position yourself for that. Now, Mark may not feel that way because his contract runs out at the end of next year, and that's
a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. The guy who has hired all the decision makers has just 1 year left in his contract.
Yeah.
And that has implications. And I'm not saying Mark, because he's got a year left in his contract, is going to say, I'm going to mail it in.
Yeah.
What the hell? I don't think he.
No, he's not that kind of human.
He's not wired.
No,
he's not wired that way. But, ask Alex Anthopoulos if being in the final year of the deal didn't cause him to look at things a little differently. I do think when you're not guaranteed to be around, you do tend to look a little. Or it's why not do it? I mean, it depends on the type of person you are.
That's an even better point.
Right? Why not do it?
They're so process oriented. Which is first? What goes first? I got to check the Vladdy off. I go after the two thumpers. I don't know. I do something with the coaching stuff. Like, how is the? I mean, what is the process?
I've got to think that we're August. I think they know right now. If you said to Mark and Ross, give me 1 to 5, the most important things you've got to do in the offseason, they'd be able to go 1 to 5.
Name number one. Name your number one. What's the first? Season ends, World Series is over, Phillies is holding up the trophy. What's the first thing you do?
For me, and it's signed Vladdy. That's number one. I think that's pretty obvious. Do I think they're going to do it? I mean, I haven't been getting any indications that there's a sense of urgency to do it. I know you don't think they're going to do it.
No, I don't. They would have done it already, in my mind.
Well, yeah, it is interesting. I was doing this coming in today, and I was looking at just kind of making mental notes here. I was looking at every team in baseball. How many teams can I come up with that have signed a young player, one of their own players, to a big contract? I mean, let's leave aside Oakland.
Mariners, Astros.
Mariners did. Astros did. Don't know about the Yankees, really. I mean, Aaron Judge, that's different. Baltimore hasn't. They haven't signed any of their young guys to long-term deals.
Phillies, Balters.
Phillies.
Got it from other teams.
St. Louis, there are a lot of teams. There are a lot of teams that are, right? I mean, you look at Kansas City, you look at Minnesota, Cleveland hasn't done it. They haven't really locked up any of their young guys. So I was thinking about that. And look, different markets, different things and everything like that. But I think it is a reminder that there are different pressure points in each market. Mm-hmm. What the Kansas City Royals needed to do with Bobby Witt Jr. may not be what the Blue Jays think they need to do with Vladdy. And this, to me, I think if you could boil down Mark Shapiro's, I don't want to put words in Mark's mouth, but just hear me out here. I think if you asked Mark Shapiro, how important it is to have Vladdy signed, he would say it's more important the team win. Now, you could say, okay, Mark, that's true, but your chances of winning would seem to be better with Vladdy under contract. But if you ask Mark what the most important thing, he'll tell you winning team. Tell you a winning team is the most important thing. And you know what? You look at this city. Roy Halladay was a great player. He didn't sell a lot of tickets. Carlos Delgado was a great player. He didn't sell a lot of tickets. When did the Blue Jays start getting people excited again?
They got it from other teams. In 15,
and they started winning.
Yeah.
So I think that's part. I think that's part of the deal here. Is Mark Shapiro thinks, and I tend to agree with him. In the long run, winning is the thing that's going to put people in the stands. It's nice if they have a player that they like, but I think winning ultimately is what puts people in the stands.
Yeah, I think you got to also ask yourself as a front office, did you do everything to surround those two with as much talent as possible to have a winning team? The answer to that's no.
No, but you're not looking back. You're not looking backwards now. I'm saying looking ahead. Wow. You're not looking backwards here.
Well, if you're not going to sign him, you got 1 year left to get it done.
And that's
maybe a half a year.
Do you think Vladdy on a bad Jays team, does he sell tickets?
No.
That's my point. And I think that we need to remember that.
Yeah, it's not Vladdy's fault that there's a bad team.
No, it's not. No, I'm not. I'm just saying. Do you think a bad team with Vladdy on it is going to sell a lot of tickets? People are going to line up to go and see Vladdy.
You sell more tickets with Vladdy on a bad team or without Vladdy on a bad team? There you go. I don't know what the numbers would be.
I think
were they a bad team?
I just think winning is the most important thing. And that gets to what I was trying to say is the only answer I have is okay, or the only question I have, if you think you can win without signing Vladdy to a long-term contract, then go and do it.
I think the only way you're going to know this is to surround them with better talent.
Well, you can't. That ship has sailed.
You got an off season here to do it.
Right, and that doesn't. If Vladdy, if you don't have him signed this offseason, once he gets to free agency, he's gone.
Okay.
People don't re-sign when they get to be free agents, in case you haven't noticed, anywhere. I mean, they don't.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
So this whole that's past. That's past. I think you have to decide what you're going to do.
So you're saying if they don't sign Vladdy, that's not the first thing they do, then they just don't waste their time going out and signing other guys?
If they aren't going to sign Vladdy long term, they've got to start getting ready for life after Vladdy. However you do that.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, that's hard.
that's hard.
That's hard to do when you're saying you're running it back. What's running it back mean? Well, they said it. They said that.
Well, they kind of didn't. You people are jumping on that. I mean, first of all, I don't believe anything anybody says in August about what they're going to do in the off season.
Well, I think they may want
to run it back.
But be careful what you say, right?
They may want to run it. They may want to run it back. But if somebody calls them and offers them 3 players for Bo, they're going to make that deal.
Yeah, here we go, that Bo thing again.
I'm just saying, you
gotta get rid of Bo.
You can't believe what people tell you. Basically, they're not. Mark and Ross aren't going to tell the whole world what their plans are. They're not. They're not going to tell the whole world what their plans are.
Man,
do you think they should? Should they come out and tell us all right now? We're going to run it back. Doesn't matter what we're offering. We're going to run it back.
That's what I was under the impression whenever I heard the GM speak. That's what he said.
I don't believe that.
That's why. What makes it? What sense does it make of trading the core, which is 2 people, when we're trying to make a decent run at this next year? How else am I supposed to read into that? That I don't believe a word I just said.
Yep.
Forget that.
Yeah, because it changes.
We're trading Bo and Vladdy as soon as the season's over.
No, but it changes. It changes. It changes. You can't possibly know what you're going to do until you know what the market is. I mean, you can't.
Wow.
Pete Alonso re-signs with the Mets. The market's changed. Your plans change. Anthony Santander re-signs with the Orioles.
Some would say you got a top 10 payroll for a reason.
I want to talk about
what did we just?
It's just it's. You asked me what the 5 most important. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Vladdy. I mean, that's just
maybe they already know.
Well, maybe they already know exactly.
That's why. But then
they have to figure out. Then they have to, if they already know what they're going to do with Vladdy, they have to figure out how they get ready for life after Vladdy. That's all. That's all.
Yep.
And it's
lose with him or without him.
Yep. Justin Verlander was on. I want to touch on this very quickly before Kiley McDaniel joins us. Justin Verlander was on Sunday Night Baseball this week, and Jesse Rogers, a terrific writer with ESPN, wrote an article that got a lot of people talking. It was a couple of weeks ago. We weren't on together, so we aren't going to talk about it, but it's something we have discussed. And, it's probably no surprise that there are folks in the commissioner's office that are looking at ways of increasing they've talked about increasing the amount of action, but they're also looking at ways of perhaps making the starting pitcher a more important part of the game. Now, they've talked about, and again, this is just talk. They've talked about requiring starting pitchers to pitch 6 innings, throw 100 pitches, give up 4 or more earned runs, or of course, obviously with a pitcher getting injured. So basically what they're doing is they're looking at ways to try to keep the starting pitcher in the game more, which they think will lead to more offense. And of course, which the starting pitchers think will make them a bigger part of the game. This was Justin Verlander on Sunday night when he was asked about this.
I saw some of the proposals that were out there. I think it's a conversation that needs to be had, quite frankly. teaching the current state of the game. We talk a lot about feel. The feel has kind of gone out of the game more recently. Coaches don't talk about it. They talk about how nasty your stuff is, how much you're spinning it, how fast you're throwing it. They don't talk about setting guys up, locating, feeling, stuff like that. If we start dictating pitchers, starting pitchers in particular, getting deeper in games, I think those conversations will start to come back. And I don't think you want to lose that in this game. It's too important. I don't think guys want to see every pitcher go out there and throw 2 or 3 innings and get yanked. Pitchers are players too. We have names on our back, and I think fans like to cheer for us. And you get those marquee matchups that are fun. You think back in the day, you got David Cohn and Randy Johnson, or, Greg Maddux and Randy Johnson. It's just those things haven't been around so much anymore.
That was Justin Verlander, who, by the way, will be facing Aaron Nola tonight.
Nice.
In a pretty big game. And again, Jesse Rogers' column talking to folks in the commissioner's office. They have discussed this. I mean, we know Rob Manfred's approach on things is pretty simple. If he sees something that he doesn't like or he thinks needs addressing, the first thing he does is he leaks a story that he's thinking of doing something. And then if the players don't react, he does it. Like, I think before the pitch clock, the clock came up. He said for 2 years, hey, we got to speed the game up. And it's on the players. But then the players go, roll their eyes. Yeah, whatever. They woke up one morning. Guess what? Pitch clock is in effect because you guys were taking too long. Now, this is a little different, and again, this thing is very fluid and it would have to go through the Players Association, the committee, and all this stuff. But the talking points, as Jesse laid them out, are 6 innings, 100 pitches, 4 or more earned runs, and then you'd make the move of the pitcher.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the best proposal is the one Jason Stark put out there, and you're already seeing it in some leagues, and you are going to see it in the majors, and that is you take your starting pitcher out of the game, you lose the designated hitter. I think that's the proposal I like. I mean, first of all, economically, that's why they don't want pitchers to rack up all those innings. Because it's what?
It costs more.
Yeah,
exactly. You got to pay a starting
Yeah.
pitcher more money.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Justin's the only one speaking about that because he's made tons of money going late in games.
No, but I mean, if you're a starting pitcher, you go to arbitration. And again, arbitration, it's old stats, innings.
Yeah.
And all that, we go, well, it's not my fault that, the manager takes me out after 3 innings. No, but you know what? The manager takes you out of 3 innings. So it is cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper it's cheaper to teach a guy in a bullpen spin rate.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are missing about teach dudes how to hit better. Like the hittings went to what. Like look at the averages. Like nobody cares anymore about who chokes up, who has a 2-strike approach. How many Jays have a 2-strike approach? Do you think they care?
No.
You think any coaches went up to them and go, hey, battle, fight, claw, scratch? No, absolutely not. You basically got 3 Big Daddy hacks.
Yeah.
That's where for me, that's where it's at. Like I know what the commissioner's trying to do and good for him, but now you're trying to, how's this going to affect the smaller market teams? The smaller market teams are doing this because this is a cheap way to compete. That's the Rays, the underground city. I mean, they're the ones to blame for this, but it ain't their fault.
Yeah, it also of course has an impact on how you develop pitchers because you've got a bunch of guys who've come up who are used to being on pitch counts. Here, kid, go and give us 6 innings.
How many times have you seen Gosman sort of complain about the velocity of his velocity being 91?
Yeah, like
they're used to the high octane velocities. Now you're asking them not to do it.
But
good luck.
Again, that is there will be. I mean, we just see this from the commissioner's office. I'm not saying it's going to happen next year, but there will be changes made. And I do think I like the double hook. I like that. You take the starting pitcher out, you lose the DH.
I don't like it.
That impacts the game.
You know what
else it does? No, you know what else it does? It also puts more strategy in the game. Anything that puts more strategy in the game is good. Because now I got to think if I take my starting pitcher out, okay, that means I've got to use a pinch hitter 2 innings down the road, and geez,
I mean, the only time McCackey talks about average is when it's under 200. Bring that back. bring back the Bo Bichette talk where the average actually matters.
Yeah,
then
but you know
then
what?
action will go up. Guys will start battling. Guys get paid for
can't-
average, that kind of thing.
But you can't do that.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, this is going to be easier to do.
Yeah, because it's a
Yeah,
rule.
good luck.
I can't.
Good luck
I
doing
can't.
this.
I can't institute a rule, Kevin, that tells you to hit 300.
You can pay for it.
I can't.
The more times you hit 300, the more money you make. Absolutely.
I can't
you can.
institute a rule that makes you hit 300,
So
but
I'm gonna make
I can put a rule in that tells you that you've got to go 6 innings, or you're
Basically,
going to lose your DH.
Basically, you are punishing pitchers for mastering velocity and spin. That's fair.
No,
That's not fair.
I'm not.
And you're taking a lot of that off the plate of the hitter. I don't believe in that.
I'm not punishing them. I'm not punishing them at
The
all.
pitching is way ahead of the hitting right now.
I'm not punishing them at all.
That has a lot to do with baseball. That's baseball's fault.
I'm not punishing. I'm not punishing
mean,
them at all. You can't. The only way players have shown, the only way they'll change anything is if you put a rule in. Again, I talked about the pitch clock. That's I mean,
Everything can't be a rule. It's like
yeah, it can.
I mean, it's the highest level.
Doesn't matter.
Old time baseball where dude just stuck his nose in there, choked up, bent over,
your favorite
riding
sport,
out, slapping balls
your
to
favorite
left.
sport changes rules every week.
Yeah, it's
The NFL.
Yeah,
You don't even know what a catch is now in the NFL. You don't know what a catch is.
I don't care what it is. I like watching people run into each other.
No, you don't know what a catch is. You know what possession is. So I mean, don't give me that. You can change rules at
Baseball's
the
not
drop
football.
of a hat.
Baseball's not football. And again, we're giving the hitters hall passes. We really are giving them hall passes. So if that's what you want to do, baseball.
Well, okay. So what are we going to do? Everybody has to hit 300.
No, not everybody can hit 300.
Okay. So
but bring it back. Don't punish them.
How
Don't
long's that
say
gonna
it's
take?
okay to strike out
So that's
200
gonna
times a
take-
year.
that's gonna take-
start paying guys like they used to pay
that's
them.
going to take a year, 2 years, 3 years. How long is it going to take? Well, no, I'm asking how long is it going to take?
Baseball is not a perfect sport. It
No, it
will
isn't.
never be a perfect sport.
No, of course not.
I mean, you're trying to turn it into a perfect sport,
you're not.
so the young kid can show up and it's an hour and 40-minute game. That's not me. I used to be the one that
Doesn't
the
make it any
strikeout-
more
I'm a
perfect.
giant human who got paid to drive in runs. Strikeouts mattered. I punched out 130 times. That was not a positive. People didn't, write it on a board and say that's okay. You swing and missing because your launch angle. Like I'm in that camp. Like I think put a little bit more on the hitter's plate. Don't always throw it off on the pitcher. And look at me taking up for pitchers.
I wouldn't take up.
Man, I just think this is an easy way to.
Yes.
Because a pitcher has mastered his craft. They figured out ways to maximize what their arm and body can do to its max. Hitters have not done that.
It's the fastest way to bring
Hitters
about
say,
change.
I'm going to uppercut 3 times if I punch out 3 times in 4 at-bats.
It's the fastest.
My organization don't seem to care. Why would I?
It's the fastest way to institute
200.
change.
We got a bunch of dudes hitting 200.
Fast.
Jay's teams, do they care?
Fastest way to institute
David Schneider's
change.
hitting under 200. Been in the big leagues forever this year. That's the thing, right? It's just that part of it is the frustrating part. But okay, this is what they want to do. This is the easiest fix. This is why they're doing it. It's a bunch of smart people running baseball. I'm sure they've done it on both sides. This is the easiest way to fix it.
That's good.
It is not. The easiest way is not always the best way.
Fastest,
That's my
easiest way is the best way to fix it.
Who are you?
That is.
You've changed.
I haven't.
You have.
I haven't.
Are you khaki?
You could take your no. They're not in favor of this. This takes the game away from them. Now all of a sudden, all that stuff we're not. Now we don't want necessarily want guys to go to spin factories and learn how to spin it for 2 innings. We want guys to learn how to navigate a lineup 3 times through. God forbid that ain't on the khakis.
Yeah, it takes away jobs now too. Now you got because basically you have souped up bullpens and asked dudes to do things that just their body's not
Still
used
have
to
the same
doing,
number of
and you've
jobs.
abused them.
Still have the same number.
And
of
now
jobs.
you're asking them that we're good. You were good for 5 years. Now you're not.
Still have the same number. of jobs.
Noteworthy.
Still have the same number of jobs.
Because you're eliminating an
Let's have
inning.
a little more free agent talk. Kiley McDaniel is ESPN's MLB insider. He broke down this upcoming free agent class into tiers.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to Kiley about
Santander
that.
Blue Jay.
Bo Bichette,
Oh boy!
Oakland
Look
Athletic.
what you. Oh, would you?
Kiley McDaniel joins us next. That's Blair and
Wow.
Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan at Sportsnet. You can tell Barker's happy. There goes that book.
You've been chaffing me the last couple of days.
Huh?
Last night you were chapping me with the Bichette thing. Now you're giving hall passes to offensive players. You're chapping me about that.
I'm not
Chapped.
I'm not chapped.
You are chapped.
I just don't like the way you take words and twist it. Twist them into
what I
different
hear.
meanings.
It's what I hear, Jeff. Sorry.
I don't think it's necessarily fair.
Right to it.
So the Blue Jays postseason chances jumped by 0.04% yesterday with that doubleheader sweep
There's a chance
of the Boston Red Sox. But let's be honest. Most of September is going to be turned over to the offseason, what we think the Blue Jays should or shouldn't do. Kevin wants them to trade Bo Bichette as soon as possible. I, of course, am in a different camp.
Now, that's not fair, Jeff.
Kiley McDaniel is ESPN's MLB insider. He has helpfully broken down the free agent class into tiers for us on ESPN. And Kiley, we appreciate you joining us on Blair and Barker. No surprise, the top tier free agent, the guy that gets his own tier, is Juan Soto. I wanted to ask you this. Based on how the offseason went last year for Scott Boras, do you think that has any impact at all on how aggressive he will be with Soto in terms of wanting to get something done early? Or do you think this may be one of those cases where Scott Boras is going to, quote-unquote, slow play the market with Juan Soto?
I mean, I don't think he's anywhere near as chapped as you are right now.
That's right.
But,
Yeah.
so thanks for having me on. I get the impression, I had a conversation with Boras for an article I wrote about a month ago. He did not seem bothered by the perceptions of how his offseason went. I was a little surprised that he described it to me and other people that talked to him around the same time as simply the players that he was representing weren't as good as people said they were, which I find kind of absurd that an agent would say that and those players would stay with him, like Blake Snell and Cody Bellinger. And then the one that fired him, Jordan Montgomery, is the one that's having the worst season of the group. I don't think his motivation is to bounce back in a big way from last offseason. I think he's already moved on in his head, right or wrong. I think, and I was surprised by this when I looked it up, the biggest contract Boras has ever done is the Bryce Harper deal, which was like 5 years ago at like $330. And I think there's already been like 4 or 5 deals bigger than that. And so Juan Soto is going to be the biggest contract of his career by like at least 50%. And he got Soto as a client from another agency like 3 or 4 years ago saying, I mean, these are what people have told me off the record, that like the sort of conversations around recruiting him were like, he's like, oh, I'm going to get you $500 million. So I think he has like set a mark for himself privately that is, this is really important. This is my biggest thing. I need to hit this one out of the park, not to bounce back because he doesn't think he messed up, but because this is the biggest one of his career and maybe the biggest one for the next 5 or 10 years. Like there's not going to be that many guys that sign for over $500 million a couple of years from now either.
I want to mention, by the way, that Kiley McDaniel is our MLB insider, brought to you by Miller Lite. So if that is the case, I asked Kevin my colleague Kevin Barker this question the other day about Juan Soto compared to Shohei Ohtani. The market for Juan Soto will be more in terms of number of teams, will it not, than the market for Shohei Ohtani?
That's a good question. I think so, just because of his age and the lack of sort of medical durability questions because of Ohtani's injuries and playing 2 ways and all that. But he also doesn't come with the sort of marketing opportunities. So I think just because it's a lower number and an easier player to wrap your mind around and doesn't have the injury stuff, I think there'll be more teams interested. I think they would all be comfortable paying more for Ohtani, though. But they're also like quite different situations. But if your point is like there will be more teams bidding actively against each other, I think that's probably true.
Who's the front runner? Like I would think, and I try to think about whether if he wins the World Series with the Yankees or not, would that change the Yankees' mind of whether – I'm sure they already have an idea of what they want to do, what they're trying to do. But if they win the World Series or lose it, do you think that changes their mind one way or the other of whether the Yankees say, okay, here's a blank check?
I went on New York radio, one of the big ones, like a month ago after I wrote the article previewing free agency, and they it sounded like there was like an explosion happening in their brains when I asked them that question. They were like, "Oh my gosh, does that make it more or less likely?" And I was like, "Did I just give you a topic for the next 2 weeks?" He's like, "Man, the next month, 2 months, 3 months?" Like talking to Yankee fans about if we win the World Series, are we likely to bring back our best or second best player for this huge number? Will ownership do it? How will ownership think about it? I don't know what the answer is. I think the sort of typical answer in these situations that happens in football as well is if you win the title, it then feels like you've put a bow on that experience, and so you're free to leave. And there's a little bit of especially if they, let's say they get knocked out in a bad call or bad taste in their mouth, and he's going to come back unfinished business, that whole deal. I don't think Soto and Boris as a unit will look at this with those sorts of things as big factors, unless Juan Soto tells Scott Boras, "I want to stay with the Yankees, get every dollar you can out of them, but I'm going back," which could be what he says. That's essentially what Aaron Judge told his agents. I wouldn't rule that out, but I think Juan Soto and Scott Boras have been thinking about the most money this entire time. And I think in both circumstances, whether they win the World Series or don't, they'll be able to justify, "Oh, well, it's probably time to move on and, go into some new area or, try some new thing." And there's always messaging you can put behind it. I get the impression that is the number one motivation, but I would imagine going for an extra 10%, or maybe even less than, let's say like an extra 2 or 3 or 4%, but to a team that maybe won't be competitive next year, I think that will be something that would move the needle for him. But to get this, 5% more from the Dodgers, who I don't think will be competitively bidding, but if they are, I don't think he would see that as necessarily losing anything, given what I think his mindset is.
Yeah, because of because of what the Blue Jays need, the two names, Santander and Alonso, are the two guys I think going into the offseason that the Blue Jays fans will sort of be paying attention to. Which one do you think will have more interest when going into the offseason between those two names?
Well, Alonso has the Steve Cohen issue hanging over him, where I think the expectation is that most teams think he's a low 9-figure, call it 100 to 125 million kind of player. He's already turned down with his prior agents a number comparable with that. So I think his aim is to get into the area of like Freddie Freeman got 162 as a comparable player. I think Freeman was a better player, but was a couple years older. So you could say he's a free agent. He's a comparable sort of player. If it is going to be in the 150, 160 area and Steve Cohen decides he wants to keep this player and they think they're making the playoffs next year or, maybe even this year, I think that then becomes similar to Brandon Nimmo or Edwin Diaz or any of the guys that have re-signed while Steve Cohen's been there. They're just going to figure out a way to give him the number they want very quickly and wrap the whole thing up. And so there's a chance he's never really a free agent. Whereas Santander, I think, an older power first guy that may not age super well and be this good 5 years from now in Baltimore, where they're not spending a lot of money and have the best farm system in baseball, like that guy's definitely out the door, and they probably offer him a below market deal if he wants to come back. So that guy hitting the market seems very likely. The odds of Alonso hitting the open market and being out there for a month or two is, maybe less than 50% at this point, because I think people perceive that the Mets would like to keep Alonso, even though I think Mets fans are preparing for a world where he doesn't play for the Mets. There's a chance he just never really hits the open market. So I would say Santander is probably the most reasonable target.
In the Tier 4 group, you have the $40 million to $80 million guys. One of those pitchers is Yusei Kikuchi. Has he increased his value dramatically since signing that contract with the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I think so. I think leading into that contract, he was seen as a bulk inning guy that is not going to blow you away. And I think over these last 2 seasons, he is seen as the bulk inning guy that might actually be a third starter on a playoff team that you feel comfortable giving the ball to. And I don't think that was necessary. There's this weird line in free agency with starters where if you are the Michael Wacha kind of guy, where it's like you're a 4th or 5th starter, maybe 3rd starter for not that great of a team, but there's a shot you're not even on the playoff roster, even if you're healthy and performing well, because if you're the 5th best starter and then you don't really work in relief and you don't throw that hard, you're the guy that is brought in to get bulk innings. You're a regular season player, not a playoff player. And teams are very hesitant to go multiple years on a guy that they think might be on that line. And sometimes I know I worked for the Braves when we had Julio Teheran, where he was basically moving from being on the correct side of that line to the wrong side of that line, where if you're 88 to 92 and sort of change up first and your breaking ball is not that good, there's plenty of room for just Petit and guys like that to throw innings, but not to play in a playoff series. And so I think he was seen as maybe on the wrong side of that line, and now he's seen on the right side of that line. And that usually is the difference between guys that have comparable seasons of starting pitchers. One gets the multi-year deal and one doesn't. If you take out injuries and those sorts of things, usually just fastball velocity and swing and miss ability, strikeout rate, things like that, that's the separator between the guy that you can see as a third, fourth starter that is in the playoff rotation and the extra guy that you sort of have floating around. And that's that line that he's been dancing around that I think he's solidified himself on the correct end of that, the correct side of that line.
Now, Kiley, we've seen Vladimir Guerrero Jr. play third base lately. There does seem to be some talk around the team. Certainly nobody's gone out of their way to shut it down, that, if the Jays can address their offensive issues by adding a first baseman in the offseason, Vladdy may play third base, start third base in what would be his final year before free agency. Is there a free agent in this market that Vladdy should be paying attention to? You look at the first baseman like Pete Alonso, you look at some of the third basemen like, Bregman, and I guess to a certain degree Matt Chapman. But part of me thinks that if he has another year like this, we're almost taking Vladdy out of that how much he's going to make as a third baseman, how much he's going to make as a third baseman category, aren't we? And just putting him into, my God, this guy is a 27-year-old slugger going into free agency regardless of what position it is.
Yeah, I guess Bregman would probably be the best example of a guy with a long track record of being very good, that is an impact bat. But obviously, like, if you just see them standing next to each other, you wouldn't think they were very similar. Mm-hmm. And I think given the age, you would then think, more toward the Bryce Harper area as a very young power hitter with some, but not a ton of defensive value as like a decent comp. And obviously that's going back like 5 years already. So There's obviously like a rarity to Vlad's profile. I would also say if you look at, say, Miguel Cabrera, I think is a decent example of this, where you take a guy that has moved down the defensive spectrum to first base as I scouted him when he's 14, 15 years old, and people thought, oh, this guy's probably a first baseman. So that's not like super surprising. To then go back up the defensive spectrum to third base, we saw Miguel Cabrera do it, and like he was technically competent in that he would like catch and throw the ball, but had the limitations everyone thought he would. And I think he lasted maybe a full season there on a not very good team and then got moved back to first base. I think that's probably how that would go. I just don't think that is usually like that will work out, because the other thing that's happening is he is now undergoing more sort of mental and physical stress trying to get better at this thing that he had put away for a little while, which would then take away from the hitting ability or the mental approach going into at bats or things like that. He then has to fight even more in terms of lateral mobility, and is just sort of putting his focus elsewhere. And I don't know if even the math of when you're doing the WAR calculation of how much of an adjustment do you get for what position you play, what is your actual defensive contribution at that position, I think it might be pretty close to a wash, if not he's just better at first base anyway. So while I totally understand that might be a beneficial thing, if the coaching staff and the front office knows Vlad's mindset and it's a good exercise for him to go through, maybe keeps him in better shape or whatever it is, I can totally see that being a beneficial thing to do. Long term, I don't think anybody really sees him as anything other than a first baseman, unless he gives you the majority of a season playing average defense at third base. Then you might be able to start that discussion and just understand that it might only last a year or two. That would surprise me, but he would have to do it at that level for someone to really take it seriously.
If the Jays decide to trade Bo Bichette in the offseason, what do you think the market's like?
That's a really tough one, because I don't doubt that there are teams that are very sharp on in the big leagues hitter development. I immediately think of the Dodgers when it comes to that. They seem to excel at that area, where they could look at what's gone wrong and have a diagnosis of, we think we can fix this. Now, you will never be 100% sure that you can fix something. You don't have access to the player. You can't have him in the cage and working on things. So it's always going to be a bit of a guess. And you're going to be going into a situation where you've got limited control. You're paying 8 figures, and he's coming off of his worst season in all of pro baseball, and there's been some injuries. So it's like a lot of ifs to where this guy could be making $12 million and not be very good, to we might be discussing a 9-figure extension with this guy in the middle of next season. Like, that's maybe the biggest spread you can have between the possibilities of what can be happening. So I would imagine that there would, I know in football it's very common to have the depending on how many snaps he plays, this 5th-round pick could turn into a 1st-round pick. Like, if there was a way to do that with a group of player to be named, I don't really think that can really be done in baseball. That would be the way you'd want to structure it, where it's like, if this guy turns into be a superstar, we don't mind giving you more. But if he turns out to be not very good and we're just going to let him go to free agency and, maybe not even take the comp pick, then that's a very different thing. And I think the reason I outline that is that the gap between what he is currently right now and what he could be, and then what Toronto would need in return to justify giving up on a guy before seeing if he can make it right as a homegrown guy, I just don't see how anyone's going to bridge that gap. Like, it doesn't make very much sense to do it now, whereas a year ago where he was playing well, and if Toronto saw the opportunity to, do a version of the, a smaller version of like the Juan Soto to San Diego deal, where it's like, we're going to be proactive. We don't think we can sign him. Let's get 4 or 5 young players and do like a sort of quick, reset of what was going on here without doing the tear down and be bad for 2 years thing. That would be a really hard decision to make. I can see why they didn't do it, but that would have been the time to do it, obviously. And now I think you basically can't do it.
Kiley, really good of you to join us today, man. Thanks so much. Terrific insight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Kiley McDaniel of ESPN. That was our MLB Insider, brought to you by Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller time. The Jays lineup is out. Springer, Varsho, Guerrero, Horowitz, Barger, Kirk, Loperfido, Clement, Wagner, Yariel Rodriguez, the starting pitcher. Will Wagner's at second base. Loperfido is in left. Dalton Varsho hitting second center field, and Vladdy's DHing. So there you go. Addison Barger at third base.
Yeah.
So Kiley seems to think that the Jays are almost in a position where they got to just bring Bo back and
Can't give him away.
Well, no, you can't. And he does make a good point of there being a big gap between what Bo has been and what he is this year. And maybe you're in a position where you have no choice. But boy, oh boy, I just can't imagine letting both of those dudes walk at the end of next year and just taking draft picks.
Well, I think what you're hoping is, right, he comes back, he's healthy. Maybe you get to see him play the last 15 games of the season.
Yeah.
He looks decent. He's
Should
moving
mention,
side
by
to
the
side,
way,
up and back.
Hazel did send out a shot. Bo is taking ground balls in the infield today in Boston. And Hazel, I'm sure, has spoken to Bo, and Bo is basically, essentially paraphrasing Bo. He's going to be a little smarter this time, attempting to come back from that calf injury. So it sounds like something.
Well, they're out of it. I mean, that's what's the point, right? I mean, again,
no, there isn't.
There is not. For me anyway, I think there's a little legacy pride thing there with Bo, right? I mean, since August of last year, he hadn't been real good offensively. Mm-hmm. Now, he wasn't injured then, and offensively, it just seems like, all the moving parts. That's the sort of the unknown is how long could that last? Like, that is, when you kick it to the year, you wrap it the way he does. I mean, just mechanically and timing-wise, how do you consistently do that all the time? And it just seems like it hasn't been an issue. And now you add the injury thing to the right leg, which has taken all the abuse when he raises his left leg. And the position he plays, maybe it gets to the point where they have to move positions. Maybe that's it. Maybe they're I know.
I want to be in that discussion.
I
want to be in that discussion.
There's just a lot
Leo
going on
Jimenez
there.
is going to be the shortstop, Bo. We'd like you to move to second base.
Just a lot going on.
Vladdy moved to third base, and he's going to be I would love to be a fly on the wall.
Oh, boy. It's just, Jeff, to say they got some heavy lifting to do, I don't want to say that's mending fences.
No,
there's obviously tension between him and the organization.
And
you got to figure out how to fix that.
We have talked about this for years. The longer it goes on, and guys don't have multi-year contracts and get close to the free agency, the more issues come up.
I can just remember when he said, "I wanted to feel wanted." They gave him 3 years.
Yeah,
that's not up.
No, but
I don't know how he's got more of a leg to stand on than Vladdy does.
Well, I don't necessarily. I don't necessarily
so that's why I
think
said,
he does.
How is it both of them?
But I do believe that both of them thought by now there would be they would have some sort of an idea what the organization. I get back to this again. We don't know. I don't think these guys have ever been serious about signing Vladdy. Do you?
Nope.
Yeah. So that's one thing compared to getting a 3-year contract that covers off your arbitration years. Buck Martinez joins us next from Fenway. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan and Sportsnet. What was that about? All right. Welcome back to Blair and Barker.
Ready to get me some coffee.
Huh?
Give me some coffee.
I got you some coffee.
You did.
Your turn to
Well, you've
buy.
been rude.
What?
Rude.
Who?
Hurts when you're wrong. A lot. Ain't it?
I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. I'm not used to it. Rob Bradford joins us at 5:30.
Yeah.
He's the Red Sox reporter with WEEI, host of the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast.
It's a great name.
It is. Kevin Gossman is on his latest podcast.
Kevin don't come on this show.
Yeah, he does. He's been on.
All season.
He's been on a couple of times. No. We just haven't asked this year. We haven't. We've got. Yeah, I guess.
Throw harder. We'll get you on.
Yes. We've got tickets available to see the
was
Jays
rude.
and
I'm
Phillies.
sorry.
That was rude. To
That
see the
was.
Jays and Phillies at the Rogers Center on Tuesday, September 3rd.
You put me in a bad mood last night.
Last
Well,
night.
yeah, you yelled at me about the Bichette, and I'm getting all these texts, and
No, it's just that you're being negative. You're being negative, and you've got.
I'm right.
You've got.
Boy, I'm good at just getting you fired up too. Just sort of digging at that.
I mean, yesterday it was like Bo Bichette Day.
There's some hatred for Bo.
Well, it's just
There
dumb.
is.
Let it go. Let it go. God.
I love Bo. I'm in the camp. Keep him.
And the thing is now is everybody's saying, oh, this is such a happy team, and man, who isn't there?
Fun police.
Who isn't there? Right? People put two and two together. Everybody's saying Don
Till he comes
Mattingly.
back, get
Don
240 hits.
Mattingly's gone. All of a sudden, they're starting to hit.
Hey, is this bad that I didn't know he's gone? Is that bad?
I don't know.
I
He had
get it.
surgery, didn't he? He had shoulder surgery or something.
Yeah. Do it. I'm not going there.
I think he had shoulder surgery. Anyhow, there you go.
Oh boy, tremendous.
Yeah, Yariel Rodriguez on the mound for the Red Sox against Cooper Criswell. I love this name.
That's a great
Cooper
baseball
Criswell
name.
tonight. That really is a good.
Yeah.
That is a good name. Cooper
Yeah.
Criswell for the.
Be cool to hit a home run off
Red
him
Sox.
and tell everybody who you hit a home run off of. Cooper.
What do you think his nickname is? If he was a hockey player, his nickname would be Coop or Chris or Wellesley.
That's
Probably
what
Wellesley.
That's what you do in
Probably
hockey.
Wellesley. Yeah, you just take the last name and add like a SIE to it or something like that. I mean, they do. Like I've always told people, if Babe Ruth was a hockey player, his nickname would have been Ruther or Ruthie. Yeah, that's the
Dosey
way
was
they were.
mine. Big Country was mine.
What was yours?
Bark was mine.
Dosey?
Big Country, Dosey.
What the hell is
'Cause
Dosey?
That's what the river's called. That's around my house where I grew up. I don't know, some river.
That was like Dosey-Do, like a square dance.
You thought wrong. I see what you're trying to do there, but you thought wrong.
Big country.
I
eh?
was Otani. Both sides of the ball.
You were the redneck Otani.
How about it? Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
We got a little time here?
Yeah, Buck's going to join us. in
Okay,
a few minutes.
real quick.
Yes.
Storylines.
False.
With the no storylines. The last 29 games of the season for the Blue Jays
Yes.
are what? In your mind,
What?
what would be some storylines? The last 29 games of the season. I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
Vladdy three homers away from 30, 13 RBIs away from 100.
Vladdy contract.
29 games left of the season.
Vladdy
Not
contract.
the offseason.
Vladdy contract. Vladdy contract. Is somebody going to make a statement about whether or not they're going to?
Well, you know
approach
that's
Vladdy?
not happening.
You asked me what
You
the storyline
just said
is.
why. You just said even if they said it, why would we believe them?
If I put
Like
100,
you say, you told us never to believe them.
If I put 100 Jays fans in here right now, and God knows the room is big enough that we could do that. If I
Well,
put
we're big time now.
100 Jays fans in here right now and said, "What do you most want to know about the Jays?" I guarantee you 95 would say, "Is Vladdy going to sign a contract?" Guarantee you.
Man,
In terms of on field, honestly, in terms of I want to see how Yariel Rodriguez and Bowden Francis finish.
Yeah.
That's a definite.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the bullpen right
Yeah.
now because it's going to, I think I kind of know. There's a couple of guys in that bullpen I wouldn't mind having back next year. There's a bunch of guys I really don't care if they come back or not, and I don't think that's necessarily going to change.
So basically, you put no zero thought into this one.
Yeah, no, I'm interested. I'm interested in seeing. I'm interested in seeing what Alejandro Kirk's September looks like. I'm really, really, really interested in that. Other than that, I think Spencer Horwitz is my everyday second baseman. Ernie Clement's on the team somehow. Leo Jimenez, is going to be in AAA. Joey Loperfido, maybe, but I just kind of think that this is what Joey Loperfido is going to be until the Jays have an off season with him, until he gets into spring training. So I don't know how much more we're gonna get out of that. But Rodriguez, Francis, and
Chad Green, 15 to 15 in saves. What if he was? I don't know. What if he saved 10 more games? He's 25 for 25. Change your mind whether he's a closer going into next season?
No.
There you go. Bing, bang, boom. Ernie Clement, everyday player, if he continues to do what he's doing now?
No.
Bowden Francis, if he continues the next 5 starts, 5th starter?
We got Buck by the
All
way.
right.
Yeah,
go.
that's what I said. Down the stretch, I mean, those are the things he wanted to see. Let's bring in Buck Martinez, Blue Jays analyst on Sportsnet, who is in Boston. Enjoyed your story, by the way, about your fishing exploits in Sioux Lookout. As somebody who's actually been to Sioux Lookout, haven't been obviously to the resort you were at, but that's what is the biggest fish you've caught, Buck? Because I was watching that last night, and I'm going, where would that rank in terms of the biggest fish you've caught? Because I know you're a sea fisherman as well.
It's by far the biggest freshwater fish I've ever caught. No question about that. But, I've caught big striped bass, and, I've caught some salmon that have been pretty big, but nothing comes close to that. That was a terrific fish.
Yeah.
Fish of a lifetime.
Yeah, Buck, was that hard to catch? Because I remember, I think you said it, you went miles before you caught this thing. Are they very hard to catch? Obviously, they go big for a reason. It's because not everybody's running out there just throwing your lure in the water and you're catching them. But why are they so hard to catch?
They're very smart. They're very wily. There's not a lot of them around. And, you have to be really quick, and they're fast. Not only are they big, but they're fast and mean. And the guide, Phil, did a terrific job of getting the fish in the boat very quick. It was dark. It was 8:40 at night.
Wow.
Awesome.
And he said, we got to get it in quick because it was around some trees and stuff. But, yeah, he did a great job. It was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it looked great. And
big fish.
The story was great as well. Hey, Buck, Kevin just asked me sort of what are, a checklist going forward, going into September to the end of the year, things that we'd like to see. And, I'm particularly interested in Yariel Rodriguez and Bowden Francis. And I'm wondering if, from your point of view, are you comfortable now with what they are? In other words, if I said, Buck, what do you think these guys are, and what can we look forward to? What can we look forward to from them in 2025? Would you be able to say, would you be able to give us an answer?
I could give you more of an answer on Bowden Francis than I could on Yariel Rodriguez.
Okay.
I think Bowden Francis, to me, reminds me of Jim Clancy, a big, strong, strapping guy that can handle a heavy workload. And I think he's a tough kid. I think he's done some nice adjustments. He's made some adjustments with his split finger pitch. He was throwing no seams in spring, and now he's got one seam on his index finger that gives him more rotation and better movement. He's a smart kid, and he's around some very smart pitchers. The rest of the rotation, they really work well together. I think I have a better feeling for him than I do for Rodriguez because Yariel hasn't pitched much. And now we're starting to see his velocity drop. He didn't pitch at all last year. He had some back issues early on. And, starters need a routine in spring training to build up their strength. We saw that with Kevin Gausman. I mean, he's just now finding his rhythm and his mechanics and his arm strength because he missed so much time in spring training. So I'm more comfortable saying that Bowden Francis will be a starter for the Blue Jays next year than I am of Rodriguez. I just don't think we know what we have yet.
Buck, since the break, the Blue Jays are 7th in hits, 8th in runs, 8th in homers, 8th in slug. Anything you can take away from that?
Yeah, I just think that, there's a couple of things. Early on, Springer wasn't doing much. Vladdy didn't do much until the start of May. And now they're really being contributors. And then the kids, the enthusiasm of the kids, I think, has had a lot to do with it. Kirky's swinging the bat well, and he's doing a good job behind the plate. And the enthusiasm, the chemistry of this team right now is pretty special. A lot of these kids played together in the minors, and now they're up here with a chance to do something pretty special. And you know what, Kevin, you know this better than anybody. There's an old saying in baseball, don't get tricked in spring training or September.
Yep.
And we're going to have to watch out for that, too. Because in September, you're playing teams that might be out of the race. You're not really playing for much. But Dan just pointed out to me that the Blue Jays are all of a sudden 8 out of a wild card spot.
Ooh.
Things change kind of quickly. But, that's obviously a stretch. They're quite a ways back and behind a lot of teams. But at the same time, I like where these guys are playing now. I like the way that Lopavito has come around. I like the way that Barger's starting to swing the bat. But nobody is really on fire. Nobody is gotten to the point where you say, wow, that guy's going to be special next year. They're interesting, and they have good tool sets, and they have great attitudes. They're all great kids. They're playing their hearts out because why wouldn't you? First time to get in the big leagues. You're playing at Fenway Park for the first time. A lot of good things are happening. But, there are some pieces here. The one big disappointment I have, not only for the season, the fact that, it's been disappointing overall, is that Elvis Martinez got suspended. Mm-hmm. I think that is a big setback for the organization because he would have been part of this. Had he played, from the time he came up to now, we would have had a real good idea of what he is. We still don't really know what he is because he's going to have to start out probably in AAA again next year. So I think that was an unfortunate loss for the Blue Jays, not having him as part of this young core getting their feet on the ground in the big leagues.
Yeah, and Buck, homers are cool. I mean, I got to be honest with you, just watching dudes hit homers is a lot of fun to watch. I got to ask you, you used to manage, you got John Snyder now, the season he's went through, 82-80, you got to go 17-12 in the next 29 games. Think it matters to him and the coaching staff?
Yeah, I do. I think it does matter. I think you want to finish up as strong as you can. A lot of these guys are going to get tested, and you're going to see some teams that are in the race, and you can have an impact in their fortunes. And right here in Boston, the Red Sox are clinging to the wall with their fingernails right now, and the Blue Jays can knock them out, basically, in this series. They've got 3 more games left in this series, and they can put a big dent in their postseason hopes. So I think those are things that encourage teams when you're in a last-place team like the Blue Jays, and you say, okay, well, we're not having the season we want. Let's make sure nobody else gets into the postseason because of us. Let's do what we can to interrupt their postseason dreams.
Do you think the team's calculation with Bo has changed at all as a result of what we're seeing from folks like Jimenez and Barger? I mean, we've already said it, the team is playing with more energy. Frankly, Buck, they're more fun to watch. I'm sure you hear the same thing I do from fans. They're much more fun to watch. Does this change at all? Anything with Bo, or when Bo is ready to go, is Bo back in the lineup?
Yes, I think Bo's back in the lineup if he's ready to go. It has been encouraging. Leo Jimenez has played much better than I expected he would, especially swinging the bat. But Bo Bichette's Bo Bichette. Mm-hmm. If he plays to his standard, what we have seen from him in his career, is one of the best in the game. And, you want to see him perform. You want to see him swing the bat. And, he's always been a big part of this offense. And I just don't think you can say, well, Leo's going to be the shortstop next year. I think Bo Bichette comes back. He's healthy. And certainly he's been one of the best offensive shortstops in baseball. And, unfortunately, he's missed a lot of games. I just counted up how many games he's missed. He's missed a ton of ball games. So, if he comes back, if he's healthy, they're going to plug him right back in that shortstop.
Buck, you think they're confident with Chad Green closing going into next year?
I think they could. I spoke to Chad yesterday about how he feels and where he is in relationship to the way he was throwing before his injury. And he told me specifically, he said, I think I was injured before I acknowledged the injury, and I'm feeling better right now than I ever have. And, yeah, I think he's capable of closing. But at the same time, if you get a healthy Jordan Romano, it's a pretty good 1-2 punch back of the lineup, back of the bullpen. So, you know, and that's the same case with Bo. I mean, you can't discount Jordan Romano because of the year he had because he's been injured. If he gets healthy and if he's right, he's going to be one of the premier closers in baseball, and you'd love to have him back. I'm sure Chad Green would say the same thing.
You know, you touched on Alejandro Kirk a little earlier, and we had John Schneider on Friday, and Kevin made the point to John, you know, not only is Alejandro, not only are the offensive numbers getting better, but Buck, he looks quicker. I don't know. His actions look quicker. Yeah. You know, Kevin's pointed out a couple of times some of the things he's seen. What do you expect from Kirky in September? And could he be changing people's minds about him, or do you still think, you know, that when you go into the offseason, you've got to, you got to have a guy who can catch a sizable number of games alongside him?
I think in baseball today, you have to have two catchers that are capable of catching every day, and you split up the workload. And I'll give you a perfect example of what's going on now in baseball. Will Smith, one of the premier catchers in baseball, has hit 177 over his last 31 games with 1 home run and 8 RBIs. Adley Rutschman, who is his opposite in the American League, he's hit 214 in his last 29 games. So catching has changed dramatically. It's a two-person position now. And with Rutschman, he's got a homer and 10 RBIs in his last 29 games. And it is the dog days of August. It's that time of the year, and you need two guys. And I think Baltimore has the best backup catcher in baseball in James McCann. But there's no doubt in my mind the Blue Jays need to go out and find at least one Major League catcher and maybe two, just for depth.
Yeah. Buck, do you have any idea what the ceiling is for Addison Barger?
What the feeling is from the club?
Ceiling with Addison Barger. Like, he's the one guy out of the young guys that you could see him hitting. You could see him hitting 30, and he's got something. Yeah.
No question. He's got a high ceiling.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And I think as he learns the quickness of the game defensively, I think he'll be very adequate, if not better than adequate, at third base, plus a big power upside. He's learning how to hit in the big leagues. You can't learn how to hit Major League pitching in the minor leagues. You just can't. It's totally different. And you have to have, Terry Crowley was a great pinch hitter for years with the Orioles and the Reds, and then he became a great hitting coach for the Orioles. And he always said, you don't know what you have until a player has 1,500 at-bats. That was pretty true with Vladdy. It was pretty true with Bo. And, you get Will Wagner, everybody gets excited about him. We got tremendously excited about David Snyder last year. But until these guys have a full season of playing 500 at-bats, then the league adjusts to them in the second 500. And then you find out what you have in the third 500 at-bats, if they can readjust and counteract those adjustments that the pitchers made. So, you have to be patient with these guys. First of all, you have to recognize who has talent and who has upside, and then you have to allow them to learn in the big leagues.
Awesome. Really good of you to join us as always, my friend. Thanks so much. Look forward to your call of the game tonight.
Thanks, Buck.
Should be fun. We like these kids. They're playing with a lot of energy.
It is a lot of fun. It's much better to watch. Thank you. Thank you, Buck.
See you, Buck.
Thanks, fellas. Have a good night.
You too.
Buck Martinez, Blue Jays analyst on Sportsnet. And it'll be the Jays and the Red Sox with Yariel Rodriguez on the mound against Cooper Criswell. Yes, Mr. Barker.
Yeah. I think Addison's the one guy out of the bunch. Not sure. Like, you just don't know. Like, he's got bad speed. He's got a little less effort with the leg kick. I mean, he went down. He's like, that big thing ain't going to work. He's got aggressive. He's got a cannon for an arm. He can play corner. Yeah. He's left-handed. Yeah. He throws right-handed. Means he's versatile. I mean, they love that. The Khaki's oozing over that versatility when it comes to the defensive side. So he's got that taken care of. He's the guy for me. Loperfido, I think you give him better direction. You just loosen him up a little.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you do that? I mean, have a little conversation, have a little fun, loosen him up a little bit, have better directions, lower half. You could probably turn him into a 40 double guy. But Loperfido or Barger, man. I mean, when he gets pitches, he hits them to the moon. He can go the other way. He could backspin a curveball the other way. It looks like he's hanging in there against lefties. Like, he's the one guy that if you gave a little run to, I just don't know if you're trying to run this thing back. How would he get run?
I don't know
where is he getting run.
That's
the question.
That is the question. Maybe let him play some first base. I mean, I'm just throwing. I don't know. You've got Springer. You're right about the arm. I mean, the arm plays. If he can hit, maybe maybe I looked there. Either corner, I'm kind of okay with that. I just think, I think right now, you look at next year, and you are being presented with the possibility for a team that has been begging for left-handed bats.
Yeah.
You're now looking at the possibility of having to try to find a spot for Horwitz, Loperfido, and Barger. And I don't.
Oh, it's not room for all three.
No. I don't know how you go. The ability of Horwitz to play second base is important.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a positional need. But, I mean, I'm with you. If Barger finishes the year.
Unless you got a little platoon with Ernie and Barger at third base, and then Loperfido's your fourth guy. Now you're talking a little. Can't do that with multiple positions.
No,
but you could do that at third, right? You got a guy with a level swing who can, hit ankle to eyeball, and you got a dude who's left-handed.
If you do that, where do your two thumpers come from? I guess a left fielder,
DH,
left fielder, and DH.
Yeah, again. I don't care. I just get them in here.
Yeah, and make it work.
Absolutely. Like, you got enough smart people around this team, this organization. It ain't about defense anymore. Yeah. Like, it's just really not. It's about scoring runs. You can tell 4.7 runs per game since the 36 games since the break. Now you're cooking with gravy, Jeff. I'm saying.
We're giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets today. We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 595.
I don't remember you asking this question.
Standard message and data rates may apply. It's probably because I wasn't here. Our last question and answer was on June 20th, 2014.
You weren't here.
On June 20th, 2014, the Toronto Blue Jays, actually I did ask this, overcame an 8-run deficit to beat the Cincinnati Reds 14-9.
Oh, yeah.
This catcher hit the go-ahead double off of Aroldis Chapman in the top of the ninth to take the lead. Hint, he has appeared in the show before. The answer was Sir Eric of Kratz.
Yeah, Lurch. Love that guy. Got to earn nicknames, Jeff.
Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Phillies. That's a good one at the Rogers Center on Tuesday, September 3rd.
Try and get Bryce Harper on.
This slugger is best known as a Blue Jay, but ended his career on a tour of the NL East as he played for the Mets, Braves, and had a 27-game stint with the Phillies in his final MLB season. Again, this slugger is best known as a Blue Jay, but ended his career on a tour of the NL East as he played for the Mets, Braves, and had a 27-game stint with the Phillies in his final MLB season. What are you doing? Text the answer to 590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590.
Oh, man.
Standard massage and data rates may apply. People will get that.
That's an easy one.
I wouldn't have gotten it right away.
He does the Mary Brown's commercials.
Oh, stop.
Medium taters.
Now you're just trying to get me to flip out, aren't you?
I just love it when he says taters. Dude, it's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, you just gave it away.
Man of the people, Jeff. Yeah.
I do that, and I catch all sorts of grief.
Well, because
you do it, and it's like a genius.
It is, because I'm genius. Borderline. I hide it, but it's in there.
You are borderline.
It's in there. It's in there.
You're borderline.
How does it feel to be wrong about everything? Basically, everything you've yelled at me the last 2 days about.
About what?
Wrong.
About what?
Bo Bichette, that's a big one.
What was
I mean, we basically had a scout
yelling?
on earlier that basically said that you were completely wrong. Bo Bichette has no market in the offseason to trade him, so wrong. There's many other things that I can't remember on
name another one. Name another one. Name another one.
That's a pretty big one.
Name another
How
one.
are we going to get 2 bats in here if we don't trade Bo Bichette? Like, it's called money. Like, that's life. You want to get talent? You know what talent is? Money. Cost. Look at a team that's good. They're oozing it out of the pores. They can't walk in the door of the clubhouse.
So you are convinced that this front office will sign 2 free agent hitters?
I think when sort of.
See, you didn't even listen to what I. You didn't even listen to what I said.
It is hard. It is hard to fathom that they can't watch this taking place right now and go, if we add some better, and then we could keep what we got here in the left-handed bats. That'd be kind of nice.
Guys are going to be gone if you bring 2 guys in. You're not going to have all these guys in the line.
Not all of them. Not all of them are big leaguers. You know it, and I know it.
My only point with Bo was that I don't think you're going to be able to sign 2 big hitters. I think you're going to be able to sign 1, and I think you're going to have to trade for another one. And I think if you trade for another one, you want a guy who's got a couple of years of control. You don't want to bring a guy in for a year.
Yeah.
How are you going to get that? Well, you're not getting it for any of your starting pitchers. You're not getting it for your prospects.
Go trade for a middle of the order bat when you got one already. Makes total sense. It really makes total sense. Just because you don't want to upset the clubhouse because you haven't signed both the cores.
It's got nothing to do with that. If I can bring a middle of the order bat in who's going to be here for 3 or 4 years,
a lot of that's justified by what the front office, what the status of the front office is. I think that's sort of where you touched on that to start the show. I think that has a lot of bearing too, right?
So I'm right about something.
You're on the fringe of being right. Not completely all in, but you're right there.
All right. Rob Bradford is a Red Sox reporter for WEEI. He's also host of the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast.
Great.
Huh?
It's a great name.
Oh, it is a great name. Rob Bradford joins us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, it'll be Yariel Rodriguez on the mound against Cooper Criswell tonight. The Jays play the 3rd game of a 5-game series that is actually only the 2nd game of a 4-game series. Did you know Danny Jansen played for both teams yesterday?
What I heard. It's in the Hall of Fame. Danny is.
He is?
Well, he will be now.
Well, he is, yeah.
Signing stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Sending it in.
Wish I could be. Look at Millar's shirt.
Anyhow. Let's bring in Rob Bradford, Red Sox reporter, WEEI, and host of the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast. Rob, I'm going to apologize. Barker's a little all over the place tonight.
I love it.
Yeah, Rob, Millar's shirt on this show I'm watching on MLB channel says Trophy Dad. I think that's kind of funny. That's all.
Yeah.
I wanted to point it out to Blair, and he's the fun police. So.
No, it's just Barker's a
He's still stung. He's still stung by yesterday's history-making event with Danny Jansen. So, in fairness to him, yeah.
Did you know Danny Jansen played for both teams in that game? By the way, yesterday,
it was weird. Like I showed up and the scorecard looked weird, and it was, what's going on? There was no leadway to it. It's crazy. It was crazy. It's unbelievable. And then they actually played a game, and everyone in Boston was sad.
Yeah, I've been told that that may have been the first time that it ever happened in baseball. I'm not entirely certain about it. Hey, why were the Red Sox so ham-handed on defense yesterday? Is that in their own park? Buck, I don't know. Buck dropped the number. I think he said they have 49 given up 49 unearned runs at Fenway. I don't know. I could have heard something, but it sounds like a lot. And they're such a good athletic team.
Yeah, I would like to say they were distracted by the history-making Danny Jansen event, but that was not the case. They just have been hit or miss defensively. They have the most errors in baseball, not even close. It's actually striking
the Diamondbacks came through, and you look at them, and they had the least. I mean, they had literally less than half of what the Red Sox do. So, yeah, they are athletic, but this is also a team for the first 3 months of the season really struggled defensively. The young players got a lot better. They were trending in the right direction, but it's sort of been, I don't know if it's because these young players aren't used to this whole scene, the length of the season, the importance of the game. I don't know what it is, but they are definitely reverted back to what they were for the first couple months.
Rob, do you have any idea what the Red Sox plan is going forward?
That's a big picture question.
Yeah.
I mean, to sign Juan Soto or for the tomorrow's starter, I don't know.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I think their plan going forward right now is to actually win a game. I mean, they need to win a game. But yeah, do you mean like in terms of next year? Or?
Yeah, like are they all in? It's just very hard. Like you got an owner who used to like to spend money, who don't want to spend money anymore. You just spent a lot of money on your manager. Like, would that change if they do make the playoffs? Would the process change if they don't make the playoffs? Like, where are they at as an organization, and what is the final outcome when it's, headed into spring training next year? Maybe I should have asked the question a little better.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, listen, it's an open-ended question. I like that.
Yeah.
But I do think they're good questions to ask, because this is something that we were wondering throughout the offseason. Why aren't they spending? What are they doing? What's the plan? And then you have John Henry, who had spent money in years past, come out and say, oh, well, you only have 20 to 30% chance of winning, so why bother? I'm paraphrasing, but that's sort of how it seemed. And then all of a sudden they play well. The young players develop. They get some good performances, and they're sort of buyers at the deadline. But I think that next year is going to be different. This is a guess. I think next year is going to be different, because they are going to be a better team. They are going to be perceived as a good team. They have young, really, really high-end young players on the horizon here. And then you just have to fill in some gaps with some smart investments. I just think that they view it as they're in a different place going the next year than they were last year. And also, Craig Breslow came out and said, what we did this offseason isn't predictive of what we're going to do going forward. I do think that they were waiting for this sort of young foundation to be in place. And now I think maybe they're going to spend a little bit of money, but you know what, guys? I mean, that's all well and good, but you can't be trending to finishing in last place again, which is, if you keep going down this road, that's what you're going to do. So at some point, you have to sort of, do something that's going to get people excited all the way through September.
At this stage of his career, what is Rich Hill? I mean, I know they selected him to the active roster, and I think Greg Weisert's also come up. Brad Keller, we saw yesterday, has been DFA'd. What is Rich Hill at this point in time?
So he's a 3-inning guy. It's a good story, because this is a guy who he prioritized coaching his 12-year-old little league team. Had 3 major league offers in the offseason, turned him down to coach his second team with the eye of jumping in with some team. I actually went to his showcase for some teams, and the Red Sox really liked him, and they really like his pitchability. You're still only talking about a fastball that sits at 87, so 87, 88. But the fascinating thing about him, and you saw it when he faced the AAA hitters the other day, is that it really is like you see the hitters' reactions to it. And the 88-mile-an-hour fastball kind of jumps, and it's like what we've learned to be spin rate. And, yeah, it used to be 90, 91, but the good version of Rich Hill has that big that curveball to go with that jumping fastball. And honestly, it wasn't that long ago last year that he was having a pretty good season with Pittsburgh. He went to San Diego and hit the skids a little bit. But still, I mean, I think that for what you're talking about, a 3-inning guy to find a pocket, they didn't have a lot of better options, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Rob, you can't teach experience. Isn't that the old saying, right? It's sort of
that, and you can't steal first base.
And you can't steal first base.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All of these.
Yeah.
I wish I could kind of rattle off more cliches, but I can't. But I think that all of these, that you have to have the physical ability. I mean, the weird thing is, you guys know the Paul Bird. I was remembering Paul Bird, 2009. He did the same thing with the Red Sox. He got dropped in after coaching his son's high school team, and he got dropped in, pitched 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs. And I think it was the last day of August, in his first outing. It didn't go well after that. But to your point, there's something to be said for a guy who can step on the mound and knows how to get out major league hitters if you have just enough physical ability.
Yeah, for sure. You had Kevin Gosman on your latest podcast. Biggest takeaway from that podcast was what?
Well, I knew about his development. My biggest takeaway, I thought he had one of the best sort of comparisons or analogies for why pitchers are getting hurt. And it was something along the lines of when you have a kid and you're playing a video game and you're doing well, and all of a sudden you hit a score that you never hit. It's like, okay, I hit this score, but I really, really want to go, keep going. I got to keep going because I feel like the next score is around the corner. And he said, look at young pitchers. Young pitchers have all these things to measure themselves. So if they're throwing 88 in the cages with all the TrackMan and everything else, and they finally hit it after max effort, after throwing 100 pitches, they're going to let me throw 20 more to see if I can get to 89 and 90. And I thought that was such a good analogy, which the takeaway is that these kids are just chasing power and velocity over and over and over again, 12 months a year. And that's what he thought was leading to some of these injuries. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Rob, really good of you to join us today. Thanks so much, man. Terrific insight.
Thanks, buddy.
Say hi to Danny Jansen for us.
Yeah, give him a hug for us. Thank you.
Who's he playing for today? I'm not sure.
Oh, good one.
I don't know. Maybe both teams. If he plays for both teams tonight, it'll be the first time in Major League history that a guy has played on back-to-back days for both teams.
Well, let me write that down.
Yeah,
got it.
Take care, man.
Thanks,
Be well.
Rob.
All right, thanks. See you.
Rob Bradford is the Red Sox reporter with WEEI and host of the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast. We're just having a little bit of fun there.
Try.
That is. We're having a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
Because Danny Jansen did, in fact, yesterday. The box score is pretty funny. The box score is
if you just
pretty
glanced
funny.
at it, you'd have to have somebody explain it to you. That,
Pretty
I
much.
think, was where the box score was at.
Hey, Trevor Richards of these parts has just been, well, not just, but earlier today was designated for release or assignment by the Minnesota Twins. Trevor Richards, of course, traded at the deadline.
Baseball's cruel, man. The Blue Jays basically got all that they could get out of him. And you basically, I don't want to say threw it away because you did him a solid by trading him to who you traded him to.
Yeah.
But they abused him. Like the way they used him, the innings they used him, just all over the place sort of.
Weren't you kind of surprised that that an American League team would look at him? I understand that with video now and everything, there's no secrets really. But I just assumed that because he hadn't been in the National League for a couple of years, a National League team might take a look at him. But
I think it's probably who came a calling. That's who you were going
Yeah.
to give him to, and maybe the Twins were the only team that came a calling. Look, it's lightning in a bottle, right? I mean, he had a pitch for a while that nobody could hit. I told you, I stood behind him in spring training, and
Yeah, I
I knew
remember the
it was
story.
coming. Me, Siddle, and Showman were looking at each other going, could you hit that? Not a chance. Like, he could tell me three of them's coming. You can't hit it. And then he started elevating it, and because basically they abused him. I mean, no offense, but that's what they did. So this is the life of being a bullpen arm.
I want to go back to our conversation with Buck for a minute because we asked him about. I asked him to sort of compare where he is in Bowden Francis to where he is on Yariel Rodriguez, and his point was I think he's a little more certain as to what the Jays have with Bowden Francis than they are with Yariel Rodriguez. What do you need to see from Yariel Rodriguez? He's got how many starts will he have left? 4 starts?
Yeah, right in there.
Around there. What do you need to see?
Yeah, I think
Because we've spent, I think, sorry, I don't want to jump in, but I think we've been in the same page that we've talked about efficiency, right? You want efficiency, you want to see him being able to put guys away with 2 strikes.
Yeah, I think it's having a purpose with every pitch. I don't think he has that yet.
What do you mean?
Well, I throw my 4-seamer that has natural cut. I throw my sinker that doesn't always sink. I throw my split finger, my slider, my slow curveball. Don't really have a purpose. Like, I'm not trying to backdoor that. I'm not trying to back foot that. I'm not trying to get a swing and miss on that. I'm not trying to pitch to a hitter's weakness. I'm just throwing it because of where I came from. I could do that because I have stuff. He's got stuff. That's where he's at. That's what Buck's talking about. That's the old catcher and him knowing what he's seeing. Again, you can't teach a guy how to have stuff and be athletic. He's got both of those. But you can teach him how to elevate a natural cutter into a righty. Can go up and into a lefty. It's with 2 strikes. It's the pitches with 2 strikes. I get 0-2, now what? It'll be the same way tonight. I mean, you're going to face a bunch of lefties. What? What are you throwing him? I get you 0-2 because I pound the zone, because that's what everybody's telling me you have to do is get ahead. But once I get to 2 strikes and a really good hitter has zoned you in and knows that, some of the time, or a lot of the times, your slider's not competitive. Some of the times your curveball's not any good. I could let that travel and still foul it off. You don't always throw your fastball where you want to throw it. Then all of a sudden now it's 3-2 and I've thrown 4 pitches from 0-2. That, I think, is where he's at, and I think that's what Buck's talking about. Now, with Bowden, it's the lanes of the elevated fastball. It's the 2-seamer. That thing ain't a sinker. It's a 2-seamer. Those have purpose. He's eliminated the curveball because it stinks. He's throwing more of the split finger because it works. Mm-hmm. I can get lefties out with the split finger because it tunnels off my 2 fastballs. I can elevate the fastball and have it be a tougher take because I'm mechanically sound. I got confidence. I got a routine because I know I'm pitching every 5 days. That's where they're at, right? And Yariel's getting to the point where he's old enough that there's no more excuses about he's trying to find his way. No. You're old enough. You pitched enough. You should be where your way's at. Get there and then let's go. Let's see you have some 3 pitch outs. That tonight's what I'm be looking for. You pound, eliminate a dude because you got good stuff. You do that. That's sort of how the graduation thing. Now all of a sudden you're seeing the 81 to 85 pitches instead of 4 1/3. It's 6 1/3. Now you're cooking with gravy. Now you're getting to quality start area, which is you pay a dude $32 million for some unknowns. You want some quality starts thrown in there, but now you got to start seeing some steps forward.
Well, and
predictable.
He's going to see some. He's going to see some
lefties. Some dudes you're going to have to pound the zone, make some good pitches. Like the sinker's got to be down. The natural cutter's got to be up. The curveball's got to backdoor when he throws it. The slider's got to have bite to it. Can't be down the middle. Like, it's got to have a purpose. It's got to, you got to be able to throw it with some conviction and know that when you do it, because you're mechanically sound and you've repeated that and you know what it feels like, it's going to end up where you want it to end up. So that, I think. And I think he's at the stage now. He's made enough starts here. He's been around Pete Walker enough. Put a little pressure on him. I think that's where he's at, too. Leave him out there. Winning. 82 and 80 sounds cool, but I'd rather have Yariel raring and ready to go for next season when I'm making my little push when everybody's 0-0 and tied for first. How was that? That's a good answer?
Yeah. No, because I think that's, I don't think we can overemphasize how important it would be for this organization to go into the offseason knowing that if they had to, trade didn't present itself, knowing that if they had to, they had 5 starting pitchers plus Bloss, and that would, I think, mitigate against some of the concern you might have about age having an impact on Bassett and Gossman in particular. It's funny because we're talking about next starts. I'm also, after hearing Kevin Gossman talk on Sunday, and how he's trying to incorporate pitches and how he's trying to show them something different. Mm-hmm. I was thinking his next start is going to be against Minnesota, right?
Who?
Gossman, is it against Minnesota or Boston?
It's Boston, I think.
Or it's Boston, okay. Because I was saying I was going to be intrigued to see how. Well, no, he pitched Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so it would be against Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
I'm just Minnesota is the team that has had Kevin Gossman's number since he's been. I mean, remember the whole tipping pitches thing with the Twins. I wonder if that'll be the acid test for the new look Kevin Gausman against a team that we think had something on you. When you were talking about Rodriguez, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah,
about the changes Kevin's made, and
I think you need those dudes running into the offseason. That's what they're going to try to do. Petey's, in my mind, one of the best. How quickly and the clout he has to go to a Gausman and say, you got to finish over your front leg, not around your front leg. You bend the front leg, you spin off of it. Ball don't go where you want to go. Velocity's erratic. It's very all over the place. You finish over it. That keeps me in my lane. It's free and easy. It's effortless. I turn around and it's 94, 95, 96, 97. Now you're cooking with gravy. And that's, again, if he's got velocity, they can know it's coming. Because that means it'll tunnel longer, it'll break later, it'll be thrown harder because he's mechanically sound. It'll look the same. It'll be in the same slot. It's harder to pick up. He'll get more swing and misses on it. So,
do you get another couple of years out of Kevin Gausman?
That's a good question. I'm not sure they need to. I think they're next year for me is the year. I don't want to say they're going to blow it up, but they could pivot.
Yeah, that's
after next year. or trade deadline of next year, the pivot may be starting.
I mean, maybe they can win like 9 games in a row and get back on the wild card, and then we can talk about that.
You're very optimistic.
I did like Buck mentioning that, Dan just looked at the standings.
I'm sure he slid that sheet over to Buck and said, hey, look at the number.
I know. Let's not talk about it.
Said I would slide it back and go schedule. That's just me.
Well,
bullpen's still not real good, and
yeah,
I mean you're going to run into some good pitching. Good pitching keeps it in the yard. That's the thing, right? It's the quality of the takes is, I think, a thing you need to look at if you're a fan of the Blue Jays and watch them consistently. Is if I take a pitch I'm supposed to take, that will allow me to consistently get to my A swing.
You look at that.
I didn't do.
You look
when
at
I
that.
played.
You look at that more than the number of pitches
Absolutely.
that a guy has
Absolutely.
faced
I don't care if he has a 9-pitch out, an out's an out. Yeah. I'm a performance-driven dude. I want to see your A swing a lot, but you got to be able to get to it. Like when Springer was going through his little hot streak, Bear was up, A swing was there. It was effortless. Now he's forcing bat speed. He is sort of sometimes over-swinging, and he's an educated guesser, and it looks to me like he's educating guessing. When he's sitting spin, he's looking spin, he'll swing at it no matter where it's at. Take him big daddy hacks. He's selling out. What you do when you're on the back nine, you sell out. That's the difference, right? Like, you can see that. Guys have been around, watch baseball, guys have been through it like myself. I was selling out in the Mexican League, Jeff.
Yeah, you can.
Dude's throwing poop, straight up poop, underhanding that thing, and I was still selling out. It was time for me.
Yeah.
So that's how that's how it looks like. So that's what I'm saying. Again, that's, I think, the little parts of how you sort of break down what it looks like, and especially when you're facing good pitch. I mean, they're going to run any good pitching. This Phillies and Braves are going to run out a bunch of good pitching. Like, you're going to run into Twins. They're going to run out some good pitching. Like, you're going to get it. Like, they add and subtract. They're going to pitch the weaknesses. The big daddy hack 3 times ain't going to work. Like,
yep. No,
hanging breaking balls and fastball counts ain't going to work. Like,
that Twin series will be fascinating because the Twins, Guardians, and Royals are just, they're just going at it right now. Royals.
Yeah, I don't know if you can take any 3 of them teams serious in the playoffs.
The only thing,
behemoths, and then there's
the only
else.
thing I would say is the Guardians have been doing this for 5 months. Like,
the only thing they got is their pen. Can their pen win them a World Series? Boy.
Well, and the dude at third base, too, needs to have.
I pitch around him.
Yeah. Anyhow, that is it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow. Dan O'Dowd, led to believe, will be joining us tomorrow. That's always a lot of fun. We get his take on what to look for down the stretch. David Sampson as well. You and him can talk about Bo. I'll just excuse myself. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk following the game tonight. We'll be back tomorrow as well. Thanks. Enjoy the baseball. Have a great night.